Hi there, and welcome to this week's Career Insight session from 1080. So today I am joined by career coaches Kris, Thorne and Marc Whitmore, who've both been on a few times before. So great to have you both back. And we're going to be talking about energy vampires and how you can maintain your energy whilst job hunting. As usual, please do like, comment and ask questions throughout so that we can make it as interactive as possible. And we're going to head straight into that first question, which is what are energy vampires, or mood hoovers, as they're sometimes called, and how can we avoid them? So I'm going to hand over to you, Kris, to start off with.
Yeah, hi, and thanks. Welcome, everybody. So yeah, energy vampires. So I think when we hear that term or we hear the term mood hoovers, we often tend to think of people outside of ourselves, and that is certainly one aspect of this. But I'd encourage you to think a little bit beyond that, because energy vampires, to me, it's anything that drains you or sucks out kind of your lifeblood or your energy. And just a very simple exercise that you could try is, I think the first thing in order to manage vampires is we got to become aware of them. So you could try just very simply pen and paper, 2 columns. On one side, you make a list of what sort of things drain you. And that could be activities, it could be tasks, it could be people. What is it that you just find, you just immediately want to, curl up and hide as soon as you think about them. And on the other side of that column, what energizes you? What brings you up, what gives you energy? And then, comparing those 2 columns, looking at that side that drains you is thinking, okay, so of the things that drain you, so what is it that you can directly impact or control? What do you have influence over? What do you maybe need to try and let go of or avoid? And especially if it's a task as well, thinking about, how could I either look at the task differently, or maybe I need to get help with the task? So if it's a particular aspect of, say, your job search that you're finding challenging, maybe writing your CV or your LinkedIn profile or reaching out to people, have conversations or whatever that is, thinking about how can I maybe see that differently if it's something that still needs to be done, or give that over. And I think when it comes to that people side, which I know Marc's going to speak to here in a moment, it's thinking about, how do I set some boundaries to manage that relationship better? Or, how do I potentially have like a courageous conversation to let them know the impact? Or if I need to, how can I have less of that draining energy in my life? And I know Marc's got some thoughts on this. So what do you think, Marc?
Good afternoon, everybody. One of the things we talked about before was about, and I think you read it, you see these quotes on social media, which is cut those people out of your life. So those people who take your energy, you don't need to be around them. But that's, I think, too simplistic, both in life and also in your career, because some of the people that take your energy might be people who you clearly, might be family and close friends. So I think one of the things I was thinking about was, when you think about your career and your job search, is thinking about, when you're talking to friends, when you're talking to family, being very kind of sort of almost very clinical about it, which is saying, if they don't truly understand what I do, because I know most people who are close to me, they don't really have a clue what I do. And that's, because they're not close enough to it. And they don't necessarily spend the time with it. But what they will do is, if you go to them, if you're looking for a job, is they will give you lots of advice, but they will be very protective of you. So I do think there's some thoughts around, particularly when you're looking at a job search, which is, think about who you talk to and think about who you go to advice for, because people could be very well-meaning. And I'm really thinking about people who might want to do something different. You go to a member of your family, you talk to a friend and say, I used to be a marketing director, and I'm going to go and be a DPD driver. I want to do something completely different. I want to change the pace of my life. Typical reaction might be, well, you can't afford to do that, or you must be crazy. Why would you do that? And a lot of it will come from a really good place. But obviously, if that's something you're thinking about doing, it's something that you probably have to kind of really work through. Something like that can really set you back. It can take your energy. It can really question people. And when I have clients, I know when they're looking at different things, they will say to me, well, I've been talking to my friends, I've been talking to X, and they're not sure it's a really great idea. And so what I'm thinking is, I'll carry on doing that. So you end up having this kind of conversation where you can see that their energy levels have gone, because in the actual conversation. So what you have to help them with is to kind of rebuild that energy. And what I'm very conscious of is, not everybody has access to a career coach. kind of rebuild that energy. So it is making sure that if you do have a confidant, if you do have a trusted advisor, that they really understand you and they really understand what you want to do, so they can give you constructive and good advice that can help keep your energy levels up. So I think it's really thinking about the people who are to you, around you, and this is nothing about intent. This is nothing, no agenda. It's just people's priority will be they love you, and it's it's your well-being, and they just want you to be safe. So I think that
great point.
Really good point. And also it kind of links back also to elevator pitches, doesn't it, Marc? So you were just saying about being really clear on what you're looking to do next. So actually it links back to making sure you are clear on what it is you want to do, and also that will help you in interviews. So if you get a question that says, you know, you're wanting to change sector, you're prepared for that as well by that thought process. So I think there's lots of wins from that. So we've got our first comment in from Jeff. So Jeff is in America. So he's saying, good afternoon, morning from across the pond. Never heard the term mood hoovers before, but I get it. So thank you. So yeah, we were just talking about this morning. So energy vampires was our first thing. But I think, Kris, you mentioned mood hoovers, didn't you? Or was it you? Anyway.
It's been a term that's been floating around out there in personal development for quite a while, I think.
It's one of those situations, I think, where you can have a bunch of people sat in a room and somebody will swing the door open or come in and everybody will drop about 6 inches in their chair. It's kind of one of those situations, I think, with how I would generally describe it.
Yeah, excellent. Great. Okay. So next question then. So how can job hunters get and maintain their energy? So Marc, I think you were going to start with this one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I was thinking about with this, and one of the things I've probably learned a little bit about myself, it's taken me till I've got quite old, is trying to understand where you get your energy. So I guess what I mean is, using me as an example, my energy and when I'm most productive in doing things is in the morning. So I really try and think when I plan my day, as much, giving as much control as I have over it. When's the best time for me to tackle certain activities with my job search? Because I know that I will make more progress in the morning than potentially I would in the afternoon. So, for example, it's quite important for me maybe not to have meetings in the morning, because they will use my energy up because I'm an extrovert. So in the afternoon, I might not achieve a great deal, or I might get distracted by doing other things. Whereas if I need to get some things done, like spend time on LinkedIn, do some work on my CV, do some analysis of my connections, it's best for me to do that in the morning when my brain's kind of more sharp, when I need more energy. And then perhaps in the afternoon, I might do some meetings then, because that's much more about using energy to talk to people. And also, as an extrovert, I can rebuild my energy there as well. So again, it's having that, for me, it's really trying to start understanding yourself in terms of where you get your energy from and when your energy is at its highest, and how you can kind of tie that to job search, if we specifically put it on that. I don't know what you think, Kris. What you would?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the theme that's starting to emerge from this is about being a bit intentional, a bit thoughtful, and actually taking time to actually think about some of these things, instead of kind of going through on autopilot. And absolutely, Marc. I mean, there's a fantastic book that I always love to recommend to my clients and pretty much anyone I meet. And I've got it here. It's called Designing Your Life, by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. There are a couple professors out in Stanford. They came up with this course on using design thinking principles to help people figure out what they want to do in life. And they've got a number of great activities in there that are really useful to kind of, exercises and things to think through. And one of the things they have you do is something called like a good time journal. And you effectively go through your day and you work out, you list down those different activities that you got to do. And then, as you're doing them, you just, at the end of each activity, you just take a second, you just kind of reflect on two things. Does it energize me, or does it engage me? And you kind of put it like on a scale of 1 to 10 for each of those. And then, you do this for like a week or two, and then you've got a bit more data to kind of look at, and then really paying attention to, okay, so for the things that were really energizing or really engaging, what was it that I was doing? Who was I doing it with? what sort of things was I using to do it? What tools or technology, or, was I doing something physically active, or, who else was there? What role did they play? And it's figuring out, what's that sweet spot really between the things that, really pull you up. And then I think, like Marc said, it's getting intentional. What time of day was I doing it? What pulls me up? Because I think this is the big thing that we're all seeing in this desire for more flexible working, isn't it? We want to be able to balance our lives, but we also want to be able to work in a pattern so that we can work most effectively. And I think tuning into what helps you to work as an individual in terms of the time of day and the activities you're doing, who you're doing it with, is really critical.
Absolutely. Thanks. So I was going to say, you see Jeff's commented here as well to say, I'm a morning person. More than anything, I get the energy from other people, which is why LinkedIn has been a lifeline during the pandemic. So I would agree with that. So Marc, you were going to say something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to put, a caveat in, whereas obviously I think in terms of where you get your energy and how you plan your day, that I just want to recognize that, a lot of times in people's jobs, they don't have complete control over that. So I suppose what I'm saying is whatever control you have over your diary day to day, think about how you use it. I'm fortunate, I'm self-employed, so when I plan my week and plan my days with clients, etc., I can be very deliberate about it. Whereas, appreciated in my previous career, if you've got your boss meeting you at 10 o'clock in the morning, or you've got an exec meeting or whatever, well, you can't change it to fit with your own energy levels. So I think I just wanted to acknowledge that to the audience as a kind of a caveat to that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think one of you mentioned about sort of physical activity as well. And I know that's something that differentiates me and my husband. So for instance, I will always go for a run or do some sort of exercise first thing in the morning, because that is what energizes me and I feel like I can get on with my day then. Whereas actually Paul has the opposite. So he will do his stuff and use the exercise, going out on his bike, as a reward at the end of the day. So going back to that, identifying what works for you, and if that's something that will energize you for the rest of the day, or if it's something you can look forward to. I think that's really important to work that out if you can. Okay, and Paul has just made a comment there. So interesting parallels here with what you're suggesting, re-job hunting and well-being in general.
You're no good to anybody if you're used up. And I mean, we all know the obvious things in terms of we need to look after our diet and our nutrition and our sleep. I mean, there's so much written about sleep. It's actually quite scary, the difference that no sleep can make. But really, if you don't take time to recharge yourself in whatever that is for you, you're going to burn out, and you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve with, especially in that job search. And it's going to come across in the interviews, I think, as well, if you're drained and you're tired, and that's not really going to, move you forward.
Yeah. And I guess something we didn't talk about in the prep, but I guess maybe the time of year has something to do with it as well. I know lots of people at the moment are feeling pretty zapped, their energy. And I think it's just that kind of summer feeling, what's the job market like anyway, can't really be bothered to do very much. So sort of giving yourself permission to take some time off maybe, and maybe restart in September if that's what's going to work for you.
I think that's really, really important from an energy perspective, Sarah, just building on that, because something I learned about myself and something I do talk to clients about, when clients talk about, I'm going to have a break, I think I might take a couple of months off. It's that clarity conversation that says, well, are you going to take a couple of months off? Or are you going to kind of do that, or are you going to half-heartedly or not properly job search and then get down because you're not really achieving progress because you haven't really applied your energy to it? So again, I think there's those things that say if it's going to give you energy and you have the ability and the practicality to take some time out to rebuild your energy, do it. Don't do it half-baked, because otherwise your energy levels won't be there, and you'll end up feeling guilty, or you'll end up, your self-worth will go down, rather than making that conscious decision to say, I'm having a break and then I'm going to restart, and I'm rewarding myself with that break. But I think it's very important from a job search perspective that people are quite deliberate with that decision that they make, if they can, because again, this is about the practicalities.
Exactly. Yeah. There may be a financial reason you need something immediately. But great. Okay.
I think I just go back to what you said, Sarah, real quick about the time of year. I think as well, obviously, we do tend to associate, August in particular with just kind of putting our feet up and relaxing. But kind of then think about maybe September is like starting afresh, like starting anew, like a new like a new school term to me always feels like a good start. It's like a new start to the year. So it's kind of a good opportunity to kind of mentally reset yourself and think about how you want to hit the ground running in September, and maybe just putting a few of the different, putting a few things in place so that you are ready to do that. So whether that's brushing up your CV or your profile or getting your connections, lined up or whatever, and just kind of taking time to come up with a plan of what you're going to do to hit the ground running in September can actually leave you feeling like, yeah, okay, I've got things in place, and now I can take my feet off take a bit of a break and then come back and hit it in a couple of weeks or something.
Yeah, I agree. I always think that September seems like a much better time to have New Year's resolutions, because I think January New Year's resolutions, it's miserable, it's winter, whereas actually September, new start, new school.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so the next one Kris is going to start on, which is about mindfulness. So how can mindfulness help as a strategy?
Yeah, okay, so this is an interesting one. So I think it's important to make the distinction here between mindfulness and mindfulness meditation, because I think we often confuse the two, and they are slightly different. So mindfulness is just simply being present in a given moment, and it's really tuning into your senses in terms of, what are you seeing, what are you hearing, what are you noticing, you feeling, what is it like to be in that experience, I don't know, just boiling the kettle and making a cup of tea or something like that. And it's just being present in that moment. Meditation's obviously taking that time to sit down, calm down, breathe, maybe do some visualization, guided meditation, whatever it is that you fancy. There's masses of research out there on how mindfulness meditation benefits us in terms of calming down our stress response. It helps us to reset and make sense of things. It helps us to get perspective on what's going on for us and see, think about how we are reacting to things and noticing that we can choose a different response to how we want to react to those things. And just really helping us be a bit more, again, that word, intentional. But I think the point here I'd say is that, of course, mindfulness meditation, whilst it's great, I mean, a lot of people do struggle with it. It's not, 10 minutes. I mean, I can't take 10 or 20 minutes to just sit down and breathe. What do you want about? And I would say it doesn't necessarily have to be that. You can find this way of tuning into things in other ways, which I know Marc and Sarah are going to speak to. So it doesn't all have to be just sitting and breathing and going, although it will definitely help calm your stress response. But there's definitely other ways that we can go about it.
Sorry, excuse me.
Okay, so about being intentional. So Marc, do you want to give your views?
Yeah, we were talking about this before, and I must admit, the spirit of openness, purely through complete ignorance. It's always, when people mention it, I'm kind of skeptical, and member of my family talks to me about it. It's the which is completely inappropriate, and it's from a complete lack of knowledge. And I think, ironically, I'd probably benefit from it because as well. So that's something for me to think about. But when we were talking about it, one of the examples, or one of the things that I do every day, which actually does helps me really think clearly, and sometimes it just gives me probably about an hour and a half a day where I have my own thoughts, and as an extrovert I kind of need to spend a bit of time in my own head rather than just talking out loud to everybody who knows me. And I walk the dog 3 times a day, and what I find when I'm walking the dog, obviously when I'm not talking to him, because as an extrovert I like to talk to somebody,
I talk to my dog too, actually.
Yeah, he never takes any notice of me, and he certainly doesn't do as he's told anyway. But so I find myself just thinking through things, and that can be absolutely anything. And what I find is I can be really clear with my thinking. So when I get back, I just find that I might come in and I might be able to tackle things that perhaps I hadn't got to before. But the thing that we talked about was, it's not a conscious thing. It only kind of came into my mind when we were talking about it earlier. And I thought to myself, well, what is it I do that can help me with my energy? And it happened to be that. So, sometimes I have to build energy to actually go out and take in. But once I'm out there, I really enjoy it. And the other thing I find is, people will stop and talk to you. So it's just a different, it just creates a different dynamic. It's a different, I'm just laughing at one Paul.
Glad it just not just me that chats to the dog.
You're not alone. My dog hears so many things. He could write my life history.
So I think for me that really, I suppose, helps with my mindfulness in the moment. And I guess that's very personal, to different, for different things to different people. But that, for me, that really helps me every day during the day to kind of keep my energy up and just give me time to think clearly.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and it's making me think a bit. So I do quite a lot of running normally, and relatively recently I've had this genius idea of why don't I listen to my audiobooks when I'm running, because then I can listen to my books and do my running. But actually that stops me thinking. So the running was really good because it was when it was giving me my good ideas, and now that I'm trying to do two kind of activities at the same time, it is actually stopping that thought process. So I think for me, I need to think, actually running on its own is great, and maybe I'll listen to the books when I'm walking or just sat down maybe.
And actually, that's a really great point that I think both of you have raised, is that you always get the best ideas when you're just doing something that doesn't require just sitting down and trying to think through a problem or a strategy. You always get the best ideas like when you're on, in the shower, or you're doing some exercise, or you walk, doing the dishes, you're cooking dinner, whatever it is. And I think it's so important, especially especially if you're trying to figure out what it is that you really like to do or where you want to go with your career. It's actually important to give yourself that headspace to come up with those ideas and let them come to you. Just let you sort of almost like kind of ask yourself the question and then just kind of let it be, and then just trust that your brain's going to come up with the answer if you give yourself the time to go away and think about it.
Yeah, definitely. So it looks like everyone needs a dog then by the comments all coming in through. So Jeff saying, got to love those four-legged business advisors. Okay, so next question. So we've sort of touched on this a bit already, but how do you balance day-to-day tasks with longer-term goals? And I think, Kris, you're going to talk a bit about habits and routines here, weren't you?
Yeah, so I think, like we were saying before, I mean, it starts with firstly having that longer term. Okay, what is it that I'm shooting for? What am I aiming for? And then breaking that down, like we've all heard about breaking it down and having SMART goals and action steps and taking little steps. And I think the thing, especially with something like a job search, you can't always control the outcome of what happens, when you have an interview or a conversation or you send off a CV or what have you. But obviously what you can control are the day-to-day actions that you are taking in that direction. So having habits and routines in place so that you're doing the right things consistently that are going to pay off over time can be a huge energy booster, because firstly, you can look at them at the end of the day and go, oh yeah, okay, I contacted 5 people, I sent out 10 cover letters this week, or I researched X number of companies, and you get a sense of achievement. And it having something in place that maybe you do certain things in certain days, kind of what they call batching those tasks, so you get into that zone, can help you to stay a lot more focused and motivated as well. And and habit stacking, where, okay, after I've made a cup of coffee, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do my LinkedIn for half an hour and reach out to people. And after I've done LinkedIn, I'm going to get up and I'm going to, send off a CV. And so it's setting up like an environmental cue that once you've done this activity, it will lead to the next one and the next one. They call that habit stacking. A little tip that I've been trying out myself recently is what I'm calling a to-do list. So instead of having my to-do list, which is all the things I need to do every day, I have been writing my to-do list as though I have completed the tasks already, so that at the end of the day, ta-da, I can look at what I've actually achieved, which for me is quite important, because I don't always tend to notice what I have done. I'm always more focused on what I need to get done. And I think it's important sometimes to, not sometimes, I think all the time, to really notice what you have done and what you have achieved, especially on days, or if there are times that things they're not going great and you're going, oh, why am I doing this? But I guarantee that if you chip away at it over time, you will reach a tipping point where all that effort will then suddenly start to come good. So it's really important to put those things in place and celebrate those successes.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And it also ties into our advice on CV writing, doesn't it? So you have everything achievement based and kind of past tense, because it's something you have done, you have achieved that thing. So I think it's a really great idea. I've never heard of it before either. So definitely something to be thinking about. So Marc, I think you were going to talk a little bit about keeping your career goal in mind.
Yeah, it was just, again, thinking about that balance, where I think one of the things is again, if you've worked through maybe what your career plan is, be that short term, medium term, or long term, but if you've got that overall view of what you're looking to achieve, I think that can be quite helpful if you're doing those day-to-day tasks. And again, this is all, again, it is about how people are, how they manage their lives. And some people, for example, do maybe like to take a more spontaneous approach. Maybe sometimes they might get distracted with doing things they haven't put on their list, be that on a particular day. And I think having that clarity of, I know where I'm trying to get to, can prevent potentially people getting downhearted or a bit crestfallen if they think, well, I haven't really done anything I was supposed to today. I really should have done stuff like that and stuff like that. And I think it's keeping that context to say, all right, you haven't ticked those things off your list, but you're still on plan. Your trajectory, your direction hasn't changed. So, don't beat yourself up, be kind to yourself. And, maybe I'm personalizing this because I am a classic individual who will make a list, to-do list, Kris, and then to the end of the day and actually go, well, not only have I not done any of the 10 things that I overcommitted to, I've done all these other things, but because I've not done a to-do list, I've got any recollection, and I haven't really given myself credit for the fact I've achieved other things. So that's a really important thing for me to think about on a personal level. But I think as long as I've got that, well, this is where I want to be in 6 months' time, or as clear as I can be, then the day-to-day things can be put into context. So I think from an energy level, if you don't achieve, maybe you don't get that CV done on a particular day, or you need an extra day to do that, has it really, really affected your strategy for where you want to get to? No, it's not really. But by having the end in mind, I think it can help you keep your energy levels up rather than maybe beating yourself up because you missed 3 things off your to-do list that you promised yourself you would do.
Yeah, and just a quick comment off the back of that, Marc, is that also maybe letting go of the how you're going to get there. So, having that end goal in mind, and, we obviously need to have something to focus on. So we set a goal to achieve something by a certain day, but not necessarily being attached to how it's going to come about. And I think Sarah had a great example of this with your son recently, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So his kind of big career goal is to have his own outdoor education centre, and he's always been into water sports, and he's a kayak coach and all of that kind of stuff. So because of COVID, that hasn't been able to happen because all of that stuff shut down. So he got a bit of an interim job, and he's going for jobs now that are not directly related to that work, but have actually got some parallels. So he's going for some work sort of helping in school environment. So that could potentially mean that he'll get all of that coaching stuff, but in just a different way. So he's still got the same long-term goals, but he's just been thinking a little bit more strategically about how he might get there when market conditions are not in his favour. So yeah, that's great. Okay, so Marc, you were talking a bit about clarity, weren't you? About linking things. So I think that's a really good point. And Kris, you were sort of summing up by saying changing your goals as we do it and letting go of the house. I think they're both really good points. Final question, which we've sort of covered already, really, but about mixing up your day seems to be a good motivator. And any other things that you can think of that people could try to help with that?
I think I touched on a little bit before in terms of what they call, you batch stuff together. So so like you kind of get in the zone on doing a particular type of task, and you'll actually find that you'll get more done because, you're not chopping and changing every 20 minutes. Because fun fact is that every time you change what you are focused on, it takes about 20 minutes for your brain to get fully engaged and into that task again. So it's actually, I didn't know that, but it's a little time management tip I picked up somewhere. But so it's actually really helpful from a from any point of view, really, productivity. If you block out, chunks, in your day to do specific things. And like going back to what Marc said, if I know that I'm at my freshest and my most energetic in the morning, that's the time I want to be maybe reaching out to people or scheduling an interview if I get a chance to do that. Or if I'd rather be a bit more, kind of easy laid back, I put the tasks in the afternoon or the time of day that I can, just kind of switch off and chill. And that kind of helps me to kind of keep momentum going, but I'm not burning myself out, because you're no good to anybody if you're burnt out, really. And it's, I think it's just, and having those little mini goals, my goal is I'm going to do, I keep hearing things about setting goals in threes. I've got 3 things I need to do today, things I would like to do today, and 3 things that if I get them done today, that would be great. So doing things in threes seems to be a nice little way of mixing it up.
Yeah, that's good. So Jeff's saying he's finding that asking his network or a coach what he can try is a big help for him. So yeah, I guess that's it, reaching out to people and seeing if they've got any suggestions. And I think, as you said, scheduling is really useful for some people, Kris, to actually block out times in their diary when they're going to do certain things. I know that I keep meaning to do that, but haven't actually got around to it yet. So yeah, any final comments for you on that one, Marc, and then we'll move on to top tips.
No, I've got nothing I would add beyond what we've talked about now.
Excellent. Okay, so as always, top tip for people to leave with. So Kris, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I think to sum up everything we've talked about, it's about being intentional. As I think you've probably picked up on our common theme in terms of making and taking the time for yourself to actually figure out what you need to keep more energized and motivated, so you can really focus on your job search and where you want to go. And I think one other tip I'd leave, just from an energy point of view, is to learn how to make a little bit of peace with uncertainty, because that's a big part of looking for a new job or new career, and we can't control what that is. I see a lot of people that I work with, there's a sense of urgency. Oh my God, I got to get a CV together. I got to get this together. I got to start looking for a job. And genuinely, sometimes there's obviously financial considerations, and of course, and sometimes mental considerations. We don't want to be sat around doing nothing for too long. And that's great. And I think we do need to get those things in place so that we can just get ourselves out there and apply for things as they come and kind of get in the groove. But I think it's really important that you value yourself enough to take the time to think about what it is that you actually want to do with your career, because the likelihood is that if you don't, you're going to end up in another career, another job that you aren't very happy with, and then you're going to be looking again. So actually taking the time to think about these things and really get focused in on where you want to go and what you want to do, it's actually, in the long run, I think that's going to energize you more than just throwing yourself into things.
Excellent, thank you. So being intentional and being comfortable with uncertainty. Okay, Marc?
Yeah, the two key pieces for me were, I think the thing I mentioned earlier is around as much as you can, reflect and try and understand when your energy is at its highest, and how you can build your job search and to get the maximum benefit on that, because again, some aspects of job search are going to take energy, and it's recognizing the best times to do those. And I think the other piece that can really help managing energy on the job search is clarity. So I think it's as clear as the more clarity you can get on what you do want, even if it's a broad brush piece, it gives you something to come back to. It gives you something to be able to recenter on, and potentially be kinder to yourself. So not beat yourself up and say, oh, I've achieved nothing today and it's going really badly. Actually, there have been some things today, but I'm on my journey. I'm really clear about what I want to achieve. So it's, I think, trying to have that clarity as well, that you can keep coming back to and keep yourself centered and focused.
Brilliant. Okay, another comment from Jeffrey here, saying another great session reminding us we need to know ourselves and go with that energy when you have it, and being cool when you don't. You really cannot force it. That's my experience. So excellent. It's a great summary. Thank you, Jeffrey. So we are out of time now. So thank you very much, Marc and Kris, for joining me today. It's been a great conversation. Next week, I'm going to be joined by 1080 coach Liz Osland, and a guest, Marc Janes, who actually used to be my manager 20 years ago. And we're going to be talking about moving sectors when job hunting. So Liz has got loads of experience with this herself and with clients, and Marc has moved from private sector to public sector. So something that quite often we have our clients talking about. So hopefully that will be an interesting conversation. So thanks again. And as always, we will go through and answer any questions later on the chat. So if you have any other questions, please do ask them. And if not, I will see you next week. So thanks, everyone. See a comment coming through. Okay, from Paul. Thanks all. Okay, I'm going to end the broadcast now. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.